Attention BART riders.
Hey, San Francisco, I'm Ben Kaplan, and this is the podcast where we define who we are and who we want to be.
We are diverse.
We are innovative.
We are inclusive.
We are change makers.
Problem solvers.
Activists.
Leaders.
Citizens.
We are open-minded.
Optimistic.
There's hope for a better tomorrow. And you got to give them hope.
This is the podcast that's more than a podcast.
San Francisco, they are the world champion.
We are San Francisco. Hey, San Francisco. Today, I'm excited to share our very first live podcast event, a discussion on uplifting small business that we recently held at the Neon Co-working Space on Union Street. Our all-star panel featured 3 noteworthy community leaders. First, Katy Tang, Executive Director of San Francisco's Office of Small Business. That's the central governing body for San Francisco businesses with less than 100 employees. Katy previously served as a San Francisco Board of Supervisors member for District 4 and also in then Mayor Gavin Newsom's administration in the Office of Public Policy and Finance. Second, meet Ben Bleiman, founder of the SF Bar Owner Alliance and president of the San Francisco Entertainment Commission. Ben has owned many notable bars and restaurants in the city and has a unique perspective on what helps and hurts new establishments. Finally, a big hello to Teddy Kramer, founder of Neon and co-founder of many community efforts to help neighborhood small businesses like North Beach Delivers and Small Business Boogie. So how does San Francisco's bureaucracy-first approach get in the way of small business success? And what inefficiencies are ripe for the fixing? Let's find out with our all-star panel. To my right is Katy Tang. Say, hey, Katy. Hey, Katy. Okay, there you go. Katy Tang, who is the head of the Office of Small Business for the city of San Francisco, also a former Board of Supervisors member. And when I was talking to Teddy about, let's do this event, Teddy will meet in a second here. He's the owner of the space we're in, Neon. And he's like, we got to get Katy. Oh, yes, we need to get Katy. If we do this, then let's get Katy. And she is here. So, Katy, is there anything else you want to say about your role? People who don't know what the Office of Small Business does for San Francisco, just to so we can understand what your day-to-day looks like and how you draw upon your experience previously on the Board of Supervisors.
Well, I'm here joined by several members of my really incredible team. So for those listeners out there, they are the true stars here at the Office of Small Business, because every day what they do is we try to get out of the way for the entrepreneurs who want to achieve their dreams and starting a business in San Francisco. So we try to help you with anything we can at any stage of your journey. So that's in a nutshell. We're trying to help.
Okay, there you go. And we'll talk about that. One of the themes that we've discussed in this show in the context of San Francisco city government is, to what extent do people view the city government as a blocker or an impediment to progress or goals or success? And to what extent do we view the city as a champion, our supporter, our biggest cheerleader? And is it possible to sort of maybe cross that divide? So next, I'd like to introduce Ben Bleiman. Ben, you are president of the San Francisco Entertainment Commission and also the owner, I've lost track, but I think at one time as many as 11 bars and restaurants in the city. Now I want to say 5. Is that correct? Tell us a little bit about what your role is on the Entertainment Commission and the specific restaurants, bars you have. If you wouldn't mind, talk in the mic so we get you in the podcast and meet Ben. Say, hey, Ben.
Hey, Ben.
Okay.
Hey, everyone. Can you hear me? So I've had 11 bars in the last 15 years. And for the better part of that time, I've been started as kind of a nightlife specific advocate in the city, and then kind of expanded in the last 6 or 7 years to kind of small business in general. Currently, we have 0 bars.
Oh, okay.
But we're buying a new one. It's Harrington's down on Front Street, and we're going to bring back Harrington's. And I have 3 dispensaries. I also run a community benefit district, so I'm the executive director of Discover Polk, which is the middle Polk area. And I won't complicate your lives by explaining what community benefit districts are, but they are really awesome. And there's 18 of them in the city, and they do just incredible work, and they're taxpayer funded. So they're pretty amazing. But in the last 6 or 7 years, I've been on the forefront of a number of pieces of legislation and ballot measures in order to help things in San Francisco be less hostile. I would like to say to be more awesome, but I would just say less hostile toward small businesses in general. So that's kind of my background.
Okay, great. And we will talk a little bit about community benefit districts and what should be the role of them. So great to have you here. And finally, last but not least, Teddy. Now we can actually introduce you. Teddy Kramer, owner of Neon co-working space. We're on Union Street here in San Francisco. Also, you've had a bunch of other, I would just call them like passion projects, especially during the pandemic, to help small businesses, help restaurants just like stay afloat, do what you can, rally your friends. Great example of residents just doing things. You don't need a title, you just do it, starting things. Talk about your background with Neon. You've been open for a few months now, and what your interest is and role in the city.
Well, first and foremost, thanks for taking me up on the invitation of hosting the podcast here and during your first live podcast with We San Francisco. And big thanks to Katy and Ben for taking a risk and sitting on this panel tonight. First and foremost, welcome to the audience here. It's interesting you brought up and talked about those people who've lived in San Francisco and kind of wanted to get involved but never did. I was one of those people. I moved here in 2015 to work for a tech company, and for 4 years, I had no involvement in this city. I was just one of those people who went downtown every day. I had my drinks in North Beach. Went out on my dates on Polk Street, and I maybe could have told you who the mayor was. I couldn't name one of the 11 members of the board of supervisors. I didn't know who the amazing Katy Tang was at that time. Then the pandemic hit. And for those of you who know me, I am an extrovert. I do not like to be alone. And the pandemic hit, and I just had to get involved. I knew if I stayed inside every single day, I would be in big trouble. And I had some good friends in North Beach. I was trying to start up Neon. I had quit my job in 2018. I spent all of 2019 alone in my apartment working. It's not any fun. And 2020 happens. We hit the pandemic. And a good friend of mine named Danny Sauter, who is the president of the North Beach Neighbors, says, hey, we're starting a small business group, and we want to figure out how we can support businesses in North Beach. And we all came to the idea that we were going to start essentially a volunteer food delivery program in North Beach. We called it North Beach Deliver. So every Thursday night, we picked a different restaurant in North Beach and we did volunteer delivery. So we would do all the marketing for the restaurant. We got them off the apps for one night. So no Uber Eats, no DoorDash. And we would do all the marketing. We'd bring in all the orders. The restaurant would collect all the payment, and we would jump on bikes. We got bikes donated to us. We'd have a few people walking, one or two people driving in cars. And in 1 year, we generated over $250,000 in gross revenue. All the tips, all the revenue stuck with the restaurant, with 50 unique businesses across North Beach, Russian Hill, and Chinatown, and helped a lot of places, we think, stay in business in that short amount of time. Because especially in a community like North Beach, that's a cash-only neighborhood. That's not a neighborhood that is used to going through the transition of moving to Uber Eats that quickly. And it was amazing to see how a community could band together and support small business. And as I was working to get Neon off the ground, I know exactly how Small Business Biggie started. It's because of Ben Bleiman. Ben Bleiman calls me in December of 2021. He says, yeah, at that time, if you remember, there were all these flash mob robberies happening all around the city, particularly in Union Square. And Ben says, I got this great idea. We're not going to do flash mob robberies. We're going to do flash mob buyouts. We're going to show up to a business and we're going to buy them out in an hour. And I said, what a great idea, Ben. When are you starting? He's like, well, I'm not starting it. You're starting it. And I said, great, thanks, Ben. Just another thing on my plate. It took me about 7 or 8 months, but in the fall of 2022, we started the Small Business Boogie. Every month, we picked a different neighborhood and we did a small business crawl, and we did it to disco. And we would play disco, and in every half hour, we would visit a different business that would do a one-night-only deal. We would always finish off at a bar, and I was crazy enough to buy drinks for all of the group. And we would do a raffle at the end. Every business would throw a gift card out. And in 7-8 months, we visited 7 different communities, including Union Street, right here. We actually did just this block. And we generated over $25,000 in revenue for all these small businesses. And the best part was, because San Francisco is a city of neighborhoods, right? And a lot of times we don't leave our neighborhoods. But it was so great to get folks to visit another commercial district that they hadn't visited. It was so great to pull people from North Beach and bring them to Clement Street, or people from Clement Street to go to Chinatown or to Union Street or to Fillmore Street, and really kind of show them how unique the city is and how each commercial district has its unique flair, has its own kind of vibe and energy. And also, we would tell the stories of these businesses, because sometimes you pass a lot of these places and you don't even know the background and the story behind them. And once you do, you get connected and you really feel love for them.
First question that I wanted to kind of pose to the panel is, are we moving in the right direction for small business? There's been some sense that we're kind of out of the pandemic. We're doing a census right now. And in every person who fills out the census, and if you're here today, get a copy of the census. There's a question on there where we said, yes or no, small businesses in your neighborhood are doing well. And what I want to say is we're in the midst of the census. We're not releasing results, but we go to certain neighborhoods where we have an event and we get a whole lot of no's. And people don't feel like they're doing well. But is that correct? What do you think? And Katy, first off with you, pick up the microphone so we can get you in the podcast. But are we headed in the right direction now for small business, or are we in the wrong direction and actually have to reverse?
I think I could answer that in a couple different ways. I mean, one is just looking at factual information around changes in sales tax data, pre-pandemic to now. And of course, we see everyone in every neighborhood pretty much is down compared to pre-pandemic times, some better than others, right? So factually speaking, right, everyone is struggling with the foot traffic as well as the changing nature of retail, right? Like everyone is shopping online these days. It's just much more convenient. The price of goods is going up for everyone. So if you're a consumer or even if you're the business owner, right, the cost of everything is just going up. So it's more challenging. So from that perspective, it has been difficult. It still is, and people are still recovering. But from another perspective, having spent probably too much time in government, I have seen this as an incredible opportunity where we have been able to push forward changes that I never would have thought would have been possible. So meaning, how can we remove more of the bureaucracy and the process in government so that, again, we could step out of the way and help facilitate businesses opening up and doing what they want to do, exercising their creativity.
So you're talking like a program like first year free or something like that makes a lot of the licensing costs, permitting fees, others for the first year of a business has been a recent program. Something like that would be an example.
Right. I never would have imagined that the city would have universally adopted this, right? Unanimously across the board to waive all the permit fees. We also currently have pending legislation to change the zoning throughout the entire city, probably the most aggressive rezoning effort ever to make it easier for people to, both existing and new businesses, to do what they want to do in San Francisco. And so all of these things, I think, again, like, what is the saying? Like, don't waste a good opportunity or whatever it is. Don't let a crisis go to waste. Yeah. So I see that happening, and I'd love to see us continue to build that momentum. And hopefully when things get better, that we don't reverse direction and go the opposite. So that's what we're working on at the moment.
Ben Bleiman, I'd love your perspective on this because specifically you've called out, and I think because you've had dispensaries and those kind of businesses that can be target for crime, like this idea of small business break-ins. Talk about that because I know you're concerned about that. Does that mean we're going in the wrong direction? Is there progress there? How do you see it? Because I know small business break-in is a huge issue for you.
So I'm just going to back up for a second just to semi-answer the first question, then I'll get to that. Okay. So San Francisco has always had, part of our values is that we haven't always lived up to our values, but if people are doing well, we always expect them to pay their fair share. That's San Francisco values. It's not a winner take all. I'm doing well, get out of my life situation. And so for literally decades and decades and decades, before the internet, before all the changes that we've seen, way before COVID, small businesses in San Francisco were viewed as kind of, they had a captive audience. Everybody had to come to them. And the city sort of slowly over decades kind of asked for them to give more and more and more and contribute more and more and more to the general fund and the tax base and all the things that we love, the firefighters and the schools and homelessness and everything. When the internet came along and things in San Francisco started to change really quickly, the city took a long time to adapt to online retail and to, especially for retail, because they're the ones who are kind of fighting against the tidal wave of online retail. And unfortunately, the city didn't come around fast enough. It kind of reminds me of taxi cabs where everybody was left with medallions that were worth $400,000 2 years earlier and then were worth nothing because Uber came along, right? And so way pre-pandemic, I started ringing the alarm and saying, you need to start focusing on small businesses. And the analogy I use in the metaphor is that we used to treat them like weeds, right? Like they just grow. Like if a small business went out of business, and I literally heard politicians who are still in office now, 10 years ago, 15 years ago say, it doesn't matter if something's vacant, right? Like somebody else will move in there. That's the free market that you're so crazy about, which I'm not crazy about, but they'd always say that. And they would just assume that it would come back. And it went from weeds to like bonsai trees, right? Where you have to like trim them every day and take care of them and make sure the pH balance is right and the vinegar and the watering.
Is that necessary for a bonsai tree? Do you have to get the...
no idea.
Okay, I didn't know if that was actually a tip. You don't know if you have to get the pH right, but okay.
I was thinking,
it seems plausible. It seems plausible.
Like part bonsai tree, part like the gremlin, the Mogwai gremlins. Okay. You need to like, there's rules and you need to like really take care of them. But so what I was trying to get across for years was way pre-pandemic is don't mistake a business that looks like it's busy for a healthy business, right? In the city of San Francisco. And we saw it coming and we were screaming, like this needs to stop. Pandemic hits. And we did have a once in a generational probably opportunity to make changes, fundamental changes, where all of a sudden people who never, ever, ever were supportive of small business changes to zoning, to planning, to the landlords, to all the things that affect us, were open and on board with making big changes, right? So completely agree with Katy. This is a huge opportunity right now, but it's something that we're trying to solve problems that started 10, 15 years ago, minimum, right? So that said, getting down to the current situation in San Francisco. So I believe very strongly that we are about to rocket ship up. I don't know if it's going to be 1 year or 3 years or 6 months, but I feel like we kind of hit the bottom. Right. And I feel like there's something about San Francisco. We got AI investing. I don't know if everybody saw that OpenAI just re-signed a gigantic lease. I think it was yesterday or the day before. Right. We have this huge influx of new businesses. People want to be here. We just need to kind of clear the way for them. So there's an opportunity right now. One gigantic thing that's happening that people are not aware of is that I think we have seen public safety in general get a little bit better since our darkest time in the last year or 2 years, right? I think that people are saying, okay, we've shifted a little bit. It's not so bad. The average people I talk to are like, look, it was worse and it's better, but it is not for small businesses right now. So small businesses are the targets of constant nighttime robberies for ATMs, smashing of your windows. Some of them are organized. Many are organized where a crew comes in and cleans you out. Some are just opportunity where somebody smashes the window and goes and rifles through your stuff. But I cannot overstate how serious this problem is right now. Just in the last, I think 4 days, I started a group of bar owners. We have 516 of us now, all bar owners in the city of San Francisco. We have a private Facebook group and we just communicate on there. We do not price fix. I erase anybody who's like, what are you charging for Jameson? I'm like, we're not allowed to talk about that. That's antitrust. But I think just in the last week, just in the last 3 or 4 days, we've had 4 or 5 bars that have just either a car drives through the window or they smash the front window, they steal the ATM, they ransack the place. It's like a different reality for us right now in small business. On the CBD that I run, Clement Street, I have one of my dispensaries on. It's just a constant. Every single night somebody gets broken into. So I just want to sound the alarm on that. And it's really hard to solve without enough police. So we don't have enough police. The board is playing shenanigans with staffing police and always making an issue. There are not enough. They cannot cover it. And we are just sitting ducks. So.
Hi, I'm Ben Kaplan, a passionate advocate for City College of San Francisco, and I'm running for the Board of Trustees. Our college is key to solving our city's toughest challenges, from creating essential worker pipelines to achieving financial security and reigniting enrollments. But we need your help. Donate now to support free tuition and transform City College into a model of educational opportunity. Join us in making a difference. Visit votebenkaplan.com to find out more. Now back to the show.
The thing about crime, whatever it is that it's like crime is not something where like if it happens and there's not a strong response, that gets better or it stays the same. Usually it gets worse, right? Usually if there's not action that's rapid and strong. And so to me, in my mind, lots of instances of property crime are hugely problematic, not just for the actual property that was stolen, but property crime unchecked, in my mind, leads to many, many other things because it only emboldens
and not
criminals.
all property crime is equal, right? So people get really fixated on the homelessness and the fentanyl crisis. And there are many, many, many crimes of opportunity where somebody's just like, let me just try to break into that place there. Or they're kind of like, whatever, I bet you I can score some. A lot of this is organized, like highly organized, not just in the dispensaries. And I've talked to the chief of police about this. I'm just sounding the alarm that like, it is one thing to have a crisis of addiction on the streets. It's another thing to say we're open for business for literally organized criminals who know that San Francisco is open for business and that A, there aren't enough police to chase you down, and B, they're not allowed to chase you, right? Like we put in our police commission put in all these rules about how you're able to engage. And very often the police are looking at, and I'm not a police booster, right? I'm not out there going pro police, but I literally see the rules that they have, and they're like, you interpret this for me, right? Like we're not like there was the lookout got the lookout in the Castro, famous bar upstairs in the Castro, got robbed. It was 2 weeks ago. The police pulled up behind the car. The people took out the stuff. They said, hey, you stop. They got in the car and drove away, and the police were not allowed to pursue them by our local rules that the police commission put into place, and literally not allowed to pursue, right? So they know that they can come here. We've created a situation where it's like crime is open for business for organized criminals. And if there's one thing we can get behind as a city, it's like organized crime isn't okay, right? Like if you're suffering on the street, we need more compassion and we're not going to criminalize poverty, all those things we all agree on, I think that's fine. But organized group of people coming in with masks and walkie-talkies and weapons in multiple cars where people jump out and use in my case, my dispensary, a metal saw to cut through the door and to gain access in 1 minute, right? That's not okay. And we need to send that message.
And Teddy, one of the things I think in the backstory, maybe people don't realize about Neon, where we're sitting now, is that the first location you were thinking about was North Beach. And you ran into blockers there. You can share some of those if you'd like or not. But then what is the perspective of someone who's like opening a new business now? You're coming to an area now, we're on Union Street, considered probably upscale, neighborhood of San Francisco. You may have been in a different neighborhood. What is it like? Were you worried about this? Were you worried about crime? What was on your mind as you went through this journey and your experience with San Francisco, the city?
To answer your kind of first question to the panel, what's the status of small business? I think, unfortunately, it's a neighborhood thing, right? As you go neighborhood by neighborhood, I think you get a very different perspective. An example is where I live on Clement Street, right? On Clement Street, in the pandemic, only 2 businesses closed. That's an insane statistic. That shows how healthy the Clement Street Merchants Association is, how that neighborhood views small business, and how they surround themselves around it. Union Street is recovering. I mean, you go from Octavia to Fillmore, there's probably 10 to 15 vacancies. But to my foray into small business when I started Neon, or tried to start Neon at the end of 2018 through 2019, I kind of went into this whole thing bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. San Francisco's going to welcome me with open arms, and everybody wants something like Neon. It really wasn't that way. I have unfortunately had to become an expert in the planning code. I've had to become someone who understands the rules and regulations of the city. And candidly, as a small business owner, it's not always what are the rules. It's how do I work my way either around or kind of bend the rules without breaking them.
Underneath, over, a slight sidestep, a little shimmy.
It's a mix. Neon is a unique concept. Unfortunately, if you go through the planning code in a district like North Beach, candidly, innovation, I keep saying candidly, but honestly, innovation isn't really welcomed. The code is so restrictive. But in a place like Union Street, it's pretty much open game. So as I mentioned, it's a city of all these different neighborhoods. And what's so confusing for the average small business owner who hasn't taken 4 years to look at the planning code and see where is your idea, which is a square peg, are there square holes or is everything round? Where do you fit? Where are you not going to face either neighborhood opposition or the random person who says, I don't know you, therefore I don't like you? There are all of these hurdles you have to jump through. I was fortunate in having that time to build relationships with neighborhood groups. But when I first started back then and didn't have them, I got my hand cut off.
Can I just jump in 1 second? So
Yeah.
this gets exactly what I was saying. There was a time that the city could afford to operate like that, when small businesses were the businesses that were available to everyone. That the city needs to understand that can no longer continue. There a couple neighbors who don't like your sign outside or don't like your concept. We can't afford any longer to allow them to just stop your business or bleed you out.
And
for
we have
a
too
year.
many stories throughout the city of this happening. The famous one is the one in it was the Castro, the ice cream shop, right? Someone tried to open up an ice cream shop, and a local competitor, 5-10 doors down, filed a discretionary review and delayed that ice cream shop, a year. And ultimately, that was a year of fees and lawyers, rent. No landlord's going to say, "Oh, you're stuck in city process. You don't have to pay rent." No landlord's going to do that, and rightfully so. You have a lease. You have to pay your obligation. But the most important thing that Katy said right when she made her introduction was, we're trying to get out of the way. And that's what we need. Get out of the way so that those of us who are starting things, whether it's a restaurant, a bar, or a concept like Neon, let the people in the audience, let the neighborhood, let the city, the visitor who comes here, let them decide if they want to support your business. Because if it works, fantastic. Then you're a San Francisco success story. And if it doesn't, then you're just at least someone who gave it a shot. But it shouldn't be the rules, or even worse, someone's opinion that maybe you can open or maybe you can't, but you've got to talk to this person, or do you know the right people? Have you talked to that person? It's too much.
I talked to somebody in North Beach once, and they were proud. They were bragging to me. They didn't know who I was, that they had successfully delayed any business from coming into a small storefront in North Beach because they and their friends got together and decided that they really needed a shoe repair, like a fancy shoe repair, like a cobbler. Yeah. I don't know. And they were going to hold out, and they held out for like 6 years, 6 years. And they stopped everything from going in there because they're like, we think we need a cobbler in there.
I was on a neighborhood call in North Beach, and I don't know if you know Luke's Local, which is a fantastic business here on Union Street, just opened up in North Beach. And I was on a neighborhood meeting when Luke's Local was going for their conditional use. And they said, "Oh, I'm all for Luke's Local opening up, but they shouldn't be allowed to sell coffee because we've already got a lot of coffee shops. Some of them are my favorite, and I don't want them competing with my local coffee shop." That's insanity to me. If Luke's Local wants to sell coffee, let them sell coffee, and they can compete with the rest of the coffee shops in North Beach. And the one that will win will win.
You're referring to something about kind of this notion of more flexible permitting, right? It's like not just for you have a permit for this very specific use, and you can't do other things like you have a co-working space, and maybe you want to sell some coffee. Maybe you think that might be a nice value add. And I think the hard part about regulations and the way I describe San Francisco is good intentions with unintended consequences. Is that you have to have perfect vision. If you're going to have every regulation perfectly crafted for the situation that you can see ahead and you know exactly what the situation will be. If you're going to be that prescriptive, you better have amazing foresight and vision and can predict the future.
I'm a little bit more cynical on that.
Okay.
I think in many ways it's intended. I think there are certain neighborhoods throughout the city, and I think we all probably know without saying it, that intentionally have restrictive zoning because they do not want change. They want the same businesses that have been there for 50 years to just stay there, and that if something new comes in, it threatens those legacy businesses. And unfortunately, I think the planning code and certain legislation has been weaponized to prevent change from coming to these communities. And you see neighborhoods like the Haight or neighborhoods like Inner Richmond that have adopted things like flexible retail, which was passed by the amazing Katy Tang. And for those who don't know what flexible retail is, it allows you to combine multiple retail uses in a space. So a bookstore that sells coffee, a record shop that sells ice cream, combining non-controversial uses allows us to innovate. Half of the city prevents us from doing that. And that's a choice. Neighborhoods have chosen to not allow us to be innovative. So to me, I don't think it's like, oh, this thing happened. Oh, I can't believe it's been misused. I think it's intentional. I think that over the last 20 years, there has been, as Ben said, things were going great. We have the opportunity, something will just come in. I think now the chickens have come home to roost, and those decisions to kind of curb the rise of business in a sense, we're now paying the price.
Want to join our movement to get San Francisco back on track? Attend a We Town Hall event or stop by our popular We Happy Hour meetups. Better yet, join our data team, take the census, or help us audit the city budget. To join the movement, text us at 415-301-6700. That's 415-301-6700. Or learn more at wesanfrancisco.org.
Katy, one question for you is, and from your perspective is, there's a lot of focus now on downtown revitalization. And makes sense, right? It's the economic engine of the city. We want a healthy downtown. But I was just talking to different, small business owners on Geary Street, not in downtown. And they were frustrated by this idea of we're prioritized so much on we've got to revitalize downtown. What about, there's a lot of areas that are not. By prioritizing downtown, are we deprioritizing everywhere else?
I mean, I would say that there's probably been a lot of media attention around downtown. And obviously, as you stated, the economic engine and where all the tourists, probably is one of their prime destinations. And what happened to them during the pandemic has really impacted the city overall, right? It's not just an impact to downtown. So I totally understand the sort of focused public attention on it, but that doesn't mean that efforts aren't happening every day, and including the work of, I would say, our office to help support businesses and entrepreneurs who want to go and either start a new business or expand in our surrounding neighborhoods. That's just as important. And so I just want to put a plug in for our office services because they are amazing at trying to, again, help everyone throughout the entire city. I mean, every single day we're seeing...
I'm a direct beneficiary of the Office of Small Business. I truly say that.
Yes. And so, we really want to hear from entrepreneurs early on, before you sign a lease, before you pull that permit. If you're just thinking through ideas, come see our amazing permitting team. We have 2 dedicated permit specialists here to just help you through that entire journey, to understand and help you roadmap what exactly you need, right? So that you don't get tripped up in the process, or to help you, speed along through. We have a wonderful team at City Hall who help you with anything from, your business registration and getting started. And every single day, and we see an average about almost 200 new business registrations in San Francisco on average each week over the last rolling 12-month average. That these are people who are choosing to invest in San Francisco, in all sorts of neighborhoods throughout the entire city. And so, again, certainly there's a lot of media attention around downtown, but every single day we are supporting neighborhoods. We're seeing people do really creative things where they're organizing farmers markets, they're organizing art walks and so forth to try to bring more people to those neighborhoods. And we certainly want to support them with that. Also one more plug in. We last year launched a refreshed campaign called Shop Dine SF, and really trying to highlight all the different neighborhoods again throughout the city. So if you go to sf.gov/explore SF, we are trying to, and it's still a work in progress, but really highlight for visitors and locals all the great unique shops and experiences that you can explore on your own in San Francisco. So we're trying to do everything we can to draw people to all of our local neighborhoods.
Can I just say one thing quick about downtown? So San Francisco's downtown funds almost literally everything that we care about in the city. Now, we can make the argument that the city hall budget has doubled over the last 10 years and that the services have gotten worse. In fact, I've made that argument many times. But even that kind of out of control budget growth aside, we cannot survive without a thriving downtown. And this is not just because I'm buying a bar downtown right now. I was saying this before, but so, this kind of zero-sum game thinking, it's understandable from local merchants. But if you think a little more and you learn a little bit more, at least the conclusion that I have gathered is that we all need to focus on downtown immediately, unless we want to stop paying teachers, right? And stop paying firefighters and things that are like desperate pension funds, like all these things that actually really matter dearly. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of offer a little color there.
The other comments that I get from small business owners is that, when we all came together during the pandemic and got things done, to your point, Katy, that we didn't think we could get done, why go back and reset to the way things were now that we're coming out? And here's an example that one kind of restaurant owner gave me, that they were debating whether to do a parklet. They had to do the parklet. They followed to the letter all the rules to sort of build the parklet and got a really nice one done. They did it for the pandemic and they spent thousands of dollars to do it. And then now that we're coming out, the city adjusted the rules, changed the rules, says, okay, it's not going to cost, it's not going to be free anymore. It's going to be, I forget what the number is, but like $6,000 to $10,000 to have the parklet. And by the way, yours is now too big. And so you've got to reduce it. And they concluded that they went to all this. They followed the rules, regulations. They did something that they were supposed to do. They thought the city was behind them. And now they're like, basically, the only choice we have, we think, is to tear down the parklet. And they said, well, why, if we all came together, why go back to bureaucracy and rules and all this stuff? Why not just keep it like that? Especially if it's really hurting small businesses. So I don't. That's just one specific story, but I don't know if you have a response to that, where sometimes people feel like they follow the rules and then the rules change and they're penalized even though they did exactly what they were supposed to do.
Yeah, I think each one's separate. I mean, we were on the front lines of the parklet battles when we were trying to get the permanent rules put in, and unfortunately, just very specifically, the fire department had serious concerns about the new parklets after the emergency ones. I didn't understand those concerns. I still do not understand those concerns. They did not budge on those, and the end result is that parklets have to be shrunken. And
I shrunk the parklet. There you go. Yeah,
I'm still kind of upset about that because we could not get a straightforward answer from the fire department on why they wanted them to come in 3 feet on each side and why we couldn't change the roofs, et cetera. My gut was that they didn't like them to begin with. Right. And so, but that's just me speculating. So the new parklets that are allowed are different than the old parklets. And if anybody wants a new one, you have to then go and make thousands and thousands of dollars worth of changes.
I'll say about the parklets, because in somewhere like North Beach, right, parklets exploded during the pandemic. And it was such an amazing thing. And I think people, for the most part, love them. So many restaurants have been able to add extra seating, which obviously increases revenues and allows you to do more covers. To me, one of the interesting quotes I heard from a restaurant in North Beach was, during the pandemic, was, we're working twice as hard for half the money. And it really painted an interesting picture of how hard it was, specifically for the restaurant industry, when you're all of a sudden one day it's like, hey, your restaurant's closed. Nobody can come inside. And then this opportunity opens up and says, hey, you can do outdoor dining now. And you can take over 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 parking spots and create this new form of seating. But the thing that felt weird was the message was, this is here forever. At least that's the message I heard. This is here forever. We'll make it work for you. And it feels like that promise is kind of not being kept.
Well, I think that the parklet situation just really highlights what, and even me as someone working in city government feels is wrong with city government, is that you do have a lot of people who, they might have studied engineering. They're a trained firefighter. They have their areas of focus and expertise, and they're just implementing what they've learned and been trained to do, and not think about the bigger picture around, well, this decision means that it'll cost this bar owner, $30,000 to rebuild a parklet. And I can't just shave off 3 feet of my parklet. I actually have to take it down and rebuild it, right?
They always go to the blood will be on your hands argument too.
Yes, that people will die.
It's really quickly, it's like, you want people to die. And you're like, no, but can we just have the parklet right there? Right. Yeah.
Let me throw out one other example. And I'm looking at the kind of licensing rates right now, 23, 24 for different businesses in the city. If you want to open up a cooking school, it's $658. If you want to have, they call it a billiard parlor. I don't know anyone who calls that anymore. This might be an older thing, but it's $220 for billiards. An auto wrecker, $719. A public bathhouse, $649. If you want to have a dance hall, $619. If you want to be a pawnbroker, that's $782. These are licensing fees. They're not thousands of dollars, but they're additional expenses, they're barriers. Should the city have these? Is it just another form, just another obstacle to opening up a small business? And why are we picking certain ones? Why are we singling out billiard halls and not other types of businesses.
It's a relic from a previous time when small businesses were a dime a dozen and they were thriving, and the city, just like with taxis, cabs, was like, okay, it's time to share, right? I completely agree that that's the most archaic, insane, dumb thing ever. There should be a very small charge that they're all charged $250 or $150 for some sort of processing fee. But on the other side, and Katy and Teddy can probably talk about this, some of the departments have begun to rely on some of this income. I don't think it represents a huge portion of their overall operating budget, but they already feel like they're underfunded for what they need to accomplish. They feel like they are not set up for success. And then they're the first people thrown under the bus when things don't work. And when you come after them and say, oh, we're just trying to cut $2 million from your budget or $3 million, they think about the actual individuals that they're going to have to fire and all the work that they have to do. And so we've gotten ourselves in quite a bureaucratic conundrum here.
Yeah. So, I mean, the permit fees, they're based on how much supposedly staff time it'll take to review something, right? To evaluate your architectural drawings or that permit application. And so, of course, they're not going to want to, when I say meaning like these permitting agencies, don't want to reduce these fees because that'll impact, right, how many people they can hire and all of that. But I think the solution really is that we need to make the process more efficient, right? We need to have very simplified applications and not require a whole host of things that then require a whole lot of staff time to review. And that way we could really make it easier for both the applicants as well as hopefully the people reviewing them.
I want to move on, but one potential solution, and I know, even before this, Teddy was texting me solutions, and we got a lot here collectively in the panel, but one of them that would maybe come from more of the private sector, how you would usually approach this, is there's something called, in the private sector, like a user flow. All a user flow really is what is the experience of a person going through this? Let's go in their shoes and say, how many offices do they need to go to? Where do they need to go? How do they get information? And you just track it through. And you say, okay, if you have to go to 14 different offices to figure this out, and you have to have X number of conversations, can we streamline that, improve that, because you put yourself in their shoes? Is that a viable option in city government? Can we just do let's just experience, whether it's small businesses, whether it's a person who is on verge of homelessness and just needs some support to make a rent payment so they won't be evicted, and they need it in 5 days, and it's $500, and it could save the city $40,000 per year in services if they become homeless. If we just put ourselves in their shoes, map the user flow, and try to simplify it, is that a solution?
I mean, I think you're referring to the conversation I brought up about ministerial approval, right? The idea that these are the rules of the game, follow the rules, it works. That's it. Just work through the checklist. And that's what we're trying to do for housing. That's what someone like Scott Wiener is doing, is saying, hey, if you want to build housing, just follow the rules and it just works. Right now, as a small business owner, I don't even think it's a perspective. It's just the way it works. It's discretionary. If you walk in to get a permit one day or to get approved for something, you are at the discretion of who's at that desk. And just to give you a little context, does anyone know here what a permit expediter is? So for those who couldn't hear in podcast land, someone said it's someone you bribe to help you get a permit. And while it sounds like a joke, it's more a reality than it is a joke. The fact that we have people whose profession is I get paid to help you get your permit shows you what's wrong with the system. It says that if you don't know what you're doing, hire this, for lack of a better term, goon to go to someone and tell you who to go to at what day and time so you can get your permit. And that's what happens. Every single general contractor I've met who helping with different projects around the city said, oh, if we don't get the permit on Tuesday, don't worry, we'll just go back on Wednesday. There'll be someone different. So you're at the discretion of someone. And if they woke up on the wrong side of the bed or they had a bad morning, you might be having the worst day of your life for your business.
So one idea to clean up the bureaucracy and make it easier and more streamlined for small businesses is just to put something forward that is just incredibly bold, wipes the slate clean, and starts over with some sort of calculated way of determining how to do it based on science and research in other cities and what would work best here, et cetera. So
for those who are housing dorks like me out there, things like CEQA get weaponized, and people will say, hey, we're going to use CEQA against you, but if you use our labor union, if you use this certain group, we
donate
won't
to our nonprofit. What happens all the time?
Correct,
donate
right?
To our nonprofit.
And that's the thing, is that these, and you brought it up earlier, Ben, the idea that we sometimes laws, ordinances, all these things have been done with good intentions, and then they're immediately weaponized. And it hurts the people, I'll say, who are just trying to open up a small business or trying to build housing or do all those things. And Ben Bleiman brought it up, is I think it's the legacy. A perfect example is formula retail in the city, which was passed in 2003. The world hasn't evolved in 20 years. It's changed so much, but we still have laws that hurt us so much. And again, it's not, hey, should we revise the law? No, it's not. Let's not revise the law. Let's just figure our way around it. Let's carve in little ordinances that take care of our buddies, but let's not take care of everyone else. So we've created an animal farm-like mentality where everyone is equal, but some are more equal than others. And that's just grossly unfair to people who should be coming to the city. I mean, there's the cliche that San Francisco is the city that knows how. Right, that came from the World's Fair. We are the city that knows how, but we've kind of lost our way a little bit. It scares me that entrepreneurs sometimes say, hey, I'm going to start a business in San Francisco, and it's all tech. And I'm not anti-tech. I love tech. I came from that industry. But it should be more, there should be more ground floor retail. There should be more in the entertainment industry. There should be more people who say, I'm an amazing chef. The place to start it is San Francisco. We got to get back to that.
I'd love to get your perspective, Katy, because you were on the board of supervisors. It was a prior board to the version now. And in fact, I think this is true. You were actually like the interim president of the board of supervisors before London Breed became president of the board of supervisors. After that, which was a stepping stone to her becoming mayor, of course. Do you feel like when you were on the board of supervisors, which, and for those of you who don't know, it's the legislative body, incredibly important for the city of San Francisco, was the culture different back then, or was it the same? Because right now, it sort of feels like it's at each other's throat, whether it's the board and the mayor. Also, I think even just news in the past couple of days of like someone proposes an amendment to do something and someone puts a poison pill on that amendment to turn it into the opposite of what it was intended. And people are getting mad. And can't everyone just go to Ben Bleiman's new bar and have a drink? And could that solve a lot of our problems if we all just came together and changed the culture of politics here?
Well, sadly, I think it'll always be that way because you've got, 11 people and then, an executive branch, and everyone's out for their interests and, their own community and their constituency, right? So I think it'll always be that way. But
was it as bitter when you were on the board, in your opinion?
It depends on which two people you might be talking about at the time.
That's what David Chu coined the term. It's a knife fight in a phone booth.
Yes. So it just depends on any moment and which 2 or 3 people are not getting along at that time. So it'll always exist. But I have seen a shift again with the challenges that, are happening right now, that there has been a movement towards, more consensus on things that I, again, never would have thought would have been possible. So I just, I sometimes I do fear a little bit for some of the better times, because then people will revert to their ways of, well, we're going to go slap on more restrictions and do things, in that bureaucratic way. So I don't know. I don't know if it'll ever get better, but it's politics, right? People will always have their own interests.
As a small business owner, one of the things that frustrates me about the board composition is, at least as far as I know of the 11, and I think I've done my homework on this, none of them has small business or experience owning a business. It's either a mix of community organizers or attorneys. And therefore, the interests of small business are either pushed to the side or they're just not understood. I've actually lobbied, I'd say probably 3 to 4 of the supervisors about pushing flexible retail, right? That concept I talked about, combining different uses. The scariest part is 3 or 4 didn't know that it wasn't allowed in their district, which shows you where it fell on their priority list. And most of them just were like, so what? What's the big idea? Like, who cares? My silly cliche is, well, small businesses don't vote. And that's why some of the supervisors, they talk a big game, but when it comes to putting, the rubber hits the road and it's time to create change, and change in the city is not doing more for small business legislatively. It's pulling back. It's taking away things so that we can do more things and have more opportunity and be able to experiment. They're kind of tone deaf. And I think because they've never sat in our shoes. They've never put their life savings into a business and gone through the process and seen what it's all about. They've worked for somebody else. And that's totally fine. But I think it's really unique to have someone like Katy who has small business experience and have seen what we go through, or even someone like David Chu, who I know has gone through that. Because when I had David Chu in the space here, he was like asking me about my pro forma and and that was amazing. It was so great to talk to someone in city government who really understood the nuts and bolts of small business. But that is the exception. It's definitely not the rule.
Yeah, I think it's important to have constituencies that care about small business, because the people who vote most in San Francisco are homeowners, right? And they vote something like 95% of homeowners actually vote in the city. And the next closest is way lower than that. And homeowners are against change. They don't want loud stuff. They don't want their neighborhood getting any busier because it's 3 blocks away, and they want the quiet enjoyment.
And they want a grocery store on every single corner.
So definitely, grocery store, cobblers. They love cobblers.
Gotta love
but I just want to get back to something Katy said, because it's easy for her to say it because it's kind of her job to say it, because she runs an office and they need to be positive. But there is a willingness right now, even with this crazy board we have, right? Which is, I would argue, not even as crazy as some of the boards we've had, right? To do things that just were never on the table before. I am an optimist. I don't think it's too little, too late. I think the sky's the limit if we come up with things. But this is why things like this are really important, because we have people who don't own small businesses who get to learn about the issues that we face and then vote that direction or advocate for us in that direction. But I mean, we're talking about flex retail. We're talking about, we got a state law passed called SB 76. Scott Wiener put it through. It allows us to have outdoor entertainment zones. The assembly, it went through the Senate. The assembly in the state cut out every city and town in California except for San Francisco. So it's just San Francisco that allows us to have open container alcohol drinking zones in the city based on how we want to do it locally. And so we're going to be working on this legislation. I helped on that. The group I founded, CalNight, was one of the co-sponsors of it. And now we're in City Hall with the mayor's office and with OEWD and others working on how that regime is going to look here. I mean, we could literally have multiple areas in San Francisco that were like tiny little mini New Orleanses, where you can walk outside with a beer, go sit at a table, walk across the street, buy another drink, go over here, listen to music without having to get it permitted day in, day out. This is insane, having done this for 15 years. The fact that this is open and even this crazy ass board is like, hell yeah, SB 76 in my neighborhood, right? Like they're all for it. So it's a different makeup right now. There's promise.
I just want to add one more thing, Ben. When every single person who's going to be running for office when you talk to them about their small business plan, they're all going to say, well, I want vibrant and wonderful commercial corridors. Press them on that. What does that mean? What does that mean? If the answer is more regulation, they're in the wrong lane.
We could give them a couple cheat sheet items. One, flexible retail.
No, don't give them the answer.
Discretion. Ask them where they are on discretionary review.
But the answer needs to be, we need to get out of the way. Yeah. Because no one is going to have a platform saying, we need to regulate more small business. I want less small business in this. They're all going to use broad strokes. Oh, I want vibrant and wonderful commercial corridors. Nobody wants empty corridors. No one wants crime. No one wants homelessness. Press them. What does that mean? How do we get to having more vibrant small business? If the answer is not, we're going to get out of the way, we're going to give entrepreneurs the opportunity to succeed on their own merits, then they're full of shit. Sorry for cursing on your part. And what I would say is my hope, and then I want to go to we'll end on our lightning round, which we're going to do here in a second so we can finish up strong. But I would just love not only get out of the way, but I would love to hear someone say, you know what? That business sounds amazing. I'm going to be there opening night. I want to tell people about that. I will be your biggest fan, your biggest champion. I'll be your biggest supporter. I mean, imagine if a politician did that. It would be so surprising. It'd be like, wow, amazing. Like they're on my side. And the city needs it now. What I think the attitude before was a small business was like, okay, it's good for the economy. It's an admirable thing. Good for you. But now it's like, we need it. We need you. Like you're doing a service for San Francisco. Okay, let's finish with the lightning round here. Lightning round means 10, 15-second answers. We're going to hit some topics here. That's going to be hard for me.
Okay, it's going to be a little challenging. Here's the first one. First lightning round, and let anyone jump in any order you want. You are given a magical red pen by the city of San Francisco. And you only got one day to use it, and you can cross out anything. It's absolute. No one can stop you. You can cross out one thing. Only one thing, though, with your red pen. What do you cross out in a regulation or a rule or a fee?
Can it be somebody's name?
I'm not going to put any rules on it. What is? All
right, no,
okay,
never mind.
No. So what is it? You got the magic red pen, lightning round. Quickly, what do you target? What do you cross out?
I guess it would be an entire department or multiple.
Okay, entire departments, multiple. Can you say which departments?
No.
You cannot say.
All of them.
Okay, you cannot say, but you would cross out. We have too many departments.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Okay. So Katy would cross out departments. Teddy, Ben, what would you cross out? Magical red pen.
All unchartered commissions in City Hall. A commission that's not part of our charter.
Okay. So anything that commission that just exists and commissions, we don't have a lot of time to get into, but it kind of diffuses power. They can shift intent. They can cause it harder to get things done. Okay. Commissions. Yeah. Teddy.
I would remove all neighborhood zoning. So it's just one code for the entire city. What works for downtown works for North Beach, works for Clement, works for Union Street. There's one code for all small business. That's it. There's no, because right now we've got these little fiefdoms and these little factions. It's just one set of rules for the entire city.
Okay. Next question of lightning round. You are made mayor for a day and you have a chance. You can't do legislation in your mayor for a day, but you can bring people together. In that day, you can choose to bring people together, shine a light on things. You can use the bully pulpit power of being mayor. Who do you get together in the same room? What do you have them do? Lightning round.
Bring them right here to Neon with all these wonderful people here.
Okay.
What a plug.
You bring them here to Neon. What else? What would you do if you were mayor for a day?
No, this is a tough one. Just to shine a light on something?
Shine a light or hold a festival or anything else?
If I could just bring everybody together and have an indoor, like, absolute insane rave in City Hall, including the dome, like, done. Yeah, that's what I would do.
Okay, you would do that?
Just a party that, 50 years later, they're like, that was the party.
That Mayor Bleiman really could party.
Okay. Insane.
That mayor knew how to party. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
What about Teddy?
Teddy?
I'm one of those folks. I'm a New Yorker, if you couldn't tell. There's the famous story of Ed Koch would walk the streets. How am I doing? I would have as many folks as I could find in city government to walk the corridors. We would walk the entire city and meet small business owners, shake their hands, see what's going on in their streets, see what's going on in the corridors. I think when you see it in the flesh, every single different corridor, I think you get a better understanding of what small business owners go through day in, day out.
Final lightning round question is, there's been a lot of discussion in the media about the state of San Francisco. It takes like national, international headlines. And you talk to a lot of San Franciscans that have real mixed feelings about this because you feel like, wow, people are commenting on the status of San Francisco who have not set foot in San Francisco, or they're blowing things out of proportion. And yet people say, well, there are serious problems we have as well. So you are made spokesperson for San Francisco for a day. You're going to be on the evening news on all channels. Every channel, including like Shark Week is postponed. It's now Teddy and Ben Bleiman and Katy Week. You have the microphone. What do you tell people about San Francisco, where we're at and where we're headed?
Don't be jealous. Just come and enjoy it.
This is something I actually do all the time. And if somebody comes to me and says, I heard San Francisco, like, who doesn't live here, and it's like, I've heard really bad things about San Francisco, I always say, actually, it's not as bad as they say. There's certain areas that are really bad. If they come to me and go, I don't think San Francisco's that bad at all, I'm always like, actually, it's pretty bad.
Terrible spokesperson.
There's real problems. Let's not just gloss over the real issue. So I encourage everybody to do that. Just say the opposite of what they say. It works for a shot. Like,
okay. Yeah. Teddy, you're the spokesperson for San Francisco for all media around the world for a day. What do you say?
So I love when my friends from out of town come in. I run a non-affiliated business and we don't advertise. It's called Teddy's Tours. And I give tours of San Francisco. And that's exactly what I would do. I say, come on a tour with me. And I show them all of the amazing parts of the city that I think are so special. And and I'll give a super quick context, and you can cut me off when you want to, but there was an article in the Wall Street Journal about this journalist who came from the East Coast, and all they used to do was go downtown. Oh, downtown. And they had this friend who lived in North Beach, and they took them on this tour. And it was for the first time in a long time, the Wall Street Journal wrote a positive article about San Francisco. And what did they do? They went to Coit Tower. They went to the Marin Headlands. They went through Golden Gate Park. They went to Ocean Beach. And they said, wow, I never saw this part of the city. I never saw this magical place that people have been talking about for the last 10 years. And that's what I love to do. I love taking people all to the little spots that I've found over the last 10 years. Take them for, an Irish coffee at Buena Vista. Take them for a cocktail at Specs, or, a sandwich at Mario's, or take them to Clement Street to Mama Hoo Hoo or Lily's, or, all these awesome small businesses.
Let's do some Mexican food at Tommy's.
Yeah.
Maybe do some margaritas too.
Mission, right? Yeah. And when you can provide that perspective, and obviously I'm very selfish, but telling that story through small business, people go, man, this city's great.
Finally, Katy Tang, you in many ways are a spokesperson for the city on small business too. But if you're the grand spokesperson of the world for San Francisco, final thing for the day, what do you say? What do you tell the world?
Well, I know we focused a lot on the small business owner perspective, but I would say that us all individually can be better customers too, right? So the next time you might be thinking about ordering that thing online, or that, that prime shipping delivery item that you want to get online, think about who you could support down the street from your neighborhood and incorporate that into your life every single day, not just on Small Business Saturday, not just, Small Business Month, like every single day. So that would be my encouragement to every single person. And that's the power that you have to really support small businesses.
According to our We Are San Francisco All-Star panel, including Katy Tang, Ben Bleiman, and Teddy Kramer, so much of what San Francisco needs to do for small business is just step out of the way. What if our measure of success was how fast a new business in San Francisco could open up? What if we permanently waived archaic licensing and permitting fees that may cost more in labor costs to implement than the amount of city revenue actually raised? What if we changed zoning throughout the city to remove regulations and instead say, hey there, small business owner, please come up with a bold concept that revitalizes our neighborhoods and the city as a whole. The sky is the limit. How creative can you be? The problem with trying to prescribe exactly what small business will do and where they will do it is that you must have perfect vision for the future. You have to anticipate situations that don't yet exist and make rules that still make sense in totally unforeseen scenarios. San Francisco city government has enough challenges dealing with the present, let alone predicting the future. Yes, we need a healthy downtown, but we should not do it at the expense of businesses everywhere else. So I'm told we have a downtown recovery plan. What about a Valencia restaurant recovery plan? How about a plan to support Chinatown businesses beyond just APEC week? In San Francisco, all neighborhoods are equal, but apparently some are more equal than others. If we rolled back regulations and fees during the pandemic because businesses needed a boost, parklets are a great example, why suddenly add back those very same regulations just because we aren't wearing masks anymore? I don't know of many businesses in the city who say they are far better off now than they were before. Finally, as many of our panelists said, we must celebrate our neighborhood small businesses. Is your grand opening coming up? We'll be there. Are you investing in an area that has vacant storefronts? Let us help. So you've got a new concept for something bold and creative in the city? Wow, we cannot wait. Yes, San Francisco government should step out of the way, but it should do it with a smile, a high five, and a pat on the back. Small businesses are part of the fabric of our city, and we need them, and we need you to succeed. We are San Francisco. Hey, it's Ben Kaplan here. Want to join our movement to get San Francisco back on track? Attend a We Town Hall event or stop by our popular We Happy Hour meetups. Better yet, join our data team, take the census, or help us audit the city budget. To join the movement, text us at 415-301-6700. That's 415-301-6700. Or learn more at wesanfrancisco.org.
This was brought to you by Top Thought Leader. Find out more at topthoughtleader.com.